The NFL loves and hates the Kansas City Chiefs by the way they set the schedule. What's it going to come down to right now on Locked On Chiefs?
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for making us your first listen here on Locked On Chiefs, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day, where you can get us 5 days a week plus here on the YouTube platform, on the audio, everywhere you can get it, you can find us. We appreciate that. Thank you. Our everydayers, they're here every day. We're glad that you are as well. That much more, you can get us on the text line at 816-357-8781 as well. We have plenty to go over. The schedule release was out. If you missed our initial offering, go make sure that you check that out. We're going to break it down for you. Just how much the NFL loves this team. That's going to be really interesting to coalesce through this entire schedule here. There's going to be a couple of obstacles. That's coming up later. There's going to be some significant pluses. That's also coming up a little bit later. But we start at the top where it belongs with what does the whole thing mean? We're going to get Chris's opinion. You know my partner. We've been doing this for 9 years, covering this team for a lot longer than that before this show started. You can find him at KC Chiefs Corner. You can find me at NFL33.com as well as RGRfootball.com. And Chris, the volume of, I think, highlight games, not necessarily prime times, but a lot of them are, just the volume of them, I think, is really significant along the lines of putting them in week one in another country. Clearly, the focus of that week, they're going to be the focus of, by my count, at least 9 weeks.
Yeah, probably. And that's the way it should be. This is, we kind of talked about this on, I think it was Wednesday. This is kind of America's team now. I guess it was on Tuesday. It's kind of America's team now. I mean, and the NFL proved that even further by putting them against America's team on Thanksgiving.
That's
the former
coming up,
America's team.
Yeah. That's also going to be a little bit in the later section as well, because I think that's one of the negatives. But
no, I don't
disagree.
disagree.
Season. Okay. But first week of the season, both major holidays during the football season. I mean, I guess you can count New Year's. So if they start that stuff, I mean, I'm sure they'll put them in it too. Like, there's no getting away. I feel great for the Chiefs fans, for our fan base. But if you don't like this team, if you're an Eagles fan and you're tired of seeing them, there's no escape from the NFL throwing the Chiefs at you all season long.
No, and it's going to continue to be that way because Kansas City sells tickets, and Patrick Mahomes is the face of the NFL, and the NFL isn't shying away from that until he's dethroned. And I know that some people will say, well, he didn't win the Super Bowl. Okay, Tom Brady didn't win the Super Bowl every single year. It doesn't change the fact that he was the face of the NFL for basically 20 years. Yeah. I mean, there was an argument to be made for Peyton Manning for several years. So, I mean, there's lots of different ways you can go with that. But the point of this is that he is the face of the NFL. And at this point, they're going to put him as many primetime games as they can, and they're going to put him in as many big slots that aren't considered primetime as they can, which is what the Sunday afternoon games are.
Yeah. And I mean, by my count, you correct me if I'm wrong. Is it only one Raiders game? Oh, no, there's a Tennessee game, right? That is a normal, quote unquote, noon start Central Time. Is that right?
That looks right to me. Nope, they play the Colts.
Okay. So there are
Week
3
12.
actually. There's a Chargers as well. So I mean, that just tells you, okay, we're going to give you a little bit of breathing room. We're going to give you a couple of early starts where you're just one of a mix of games. But clearly, the afternoon titles, they are so much more wide in scope of what part of the country sees them. You're right; they're not prime time, but they're the next best thing, and this schedule is full of that for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yep, absolutely. And you look at it. I mean, they play the Eagles in week 2. They played the Chargers in week 1. They're the big games. I mean, the Eagles aren't going to open up against the Super Bowl. They're not going to put the Eagles in a situation to open up against the team that they played in the Super Bowl the prior year. So that was never really going to be the thought process. And the other thing is I think the NFL looked at this and said, okay, the Chargers are going to Sao Paulo. We need somebody that's going to sell huge in Brazil, and there's nobody bigger to sell. It's Patrick Mahomes.
You're absolutely right. And that's where it comes down to. I will give him this. I heard from all my Philly people, and I have a bunch of them just through the years. And they were a little frustrated that the Chiefs are going to play the Eagles in week 2, but coming off of what is going to be 11 days, it will include their trip back, which is no small matter, but it is going to be a bit of a gap there. So a lot of frustration in Philly.
Well, and Philly doesn't, at least in the past couple of years, Philly hasn't played great in the early parts of the season. So there's questions there. Like, do you look at this and say Philly is in a position where they're not going to play great because they're trying to figure out their team? I mean, they have a lot of new pieces. They have most of the same team that they had last year, but they have some new pieces. So they've got to get some stuff figured out. So it's all going to be a matter of, where our team's at early in the season. And sometimes it's good to play them and sometimes it's not.
Yeah, I agree. One of the other highlight games that I think really stands out about them wanting to push like on trends as well, right? Clearly the Brazil thing, the international thing is a significance, but a late game against the Ravens in the first quarter of the season, I think that also stands out there. Then you come back and maybe everybody's darling of the league last year, the Washington Commanders, are another primetime game in the first half of the season. That just goes to show you that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 primetime games, week 8 or earlier.
And that's actually an NFL record.
Yeah.
I can't remember where I saw that, but that is an NFL record. There's been no teams that have had that many primetime games early in the season. So we'll have a pretty good idea of where things are. But yeah, it's pretty interesting that they're putting them in that many primetime games early on.
Yeah, it is certainly a statement about where the league is right now and where it's going. Now, there's also some ups and downs. We're going to start here on the ups. I almost got my wish. I think this schedule worked out very, very well. I'm going to tell you why coming up next. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers the highlight-worthy performances, major momentum swings, and the can't-miss moments, whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player. There's never a better time to get into the action. FanDuel makes that super easy to stay in the game before the tip-off and when it's live. With player props, performance trends, as well as same-game parlays, fans have more ways to play than ever before and to win big. All you got to do, especially if it's an injury night or something is crazy going to happen, you can get into the action right away. If you've got a read on who's heating up because of it, right now you can get on the same game parlay. Easy, and you can win big with it. If you're new to FanDuel right now, it's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If that bet wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. You can find more on our respective sites at KC Chiefs Corner, at RGR Football, NFL 33, because this is just something you have to take some time and digest. But just looking at it, I feel like there's a couple of significant pluses that I really am happy about. I almost got my wish, as I said, but what's the number one thing that stands out to you?
Honestly, I was going to go with what your wish was. They got their bye week later. I'm guessing that's what your wish was.
Yeah, well, there was a couple of them, but yeah, I was hoping for 12, but I'll take 10 in a heartbeat.
I could have sworn you said 10 on our show the other day. That's why I was
I may have actually. That was kind of like the early part of the window.
I'm pretty sure you said 10. But the point is, okay, and we'll talk about obstacles, but the thing I don't like about it, and I know we're still talking about pluses, but the thing I don't like about where their bye is it's right after the Bills game. Wish it was right before.
But you know what? I understand your point, but I see that actually as a plus because you get Philly out of the way. You get Baltimore and Buffalo in the first half of the season, which I think, despite what's gone on lately, I think gives you a little bit better of a chance of preparation later in the season because you are going to shift some things at the bye week. You are going to take stock, and that's the one spot in a normal Andy Reid season that significant adjustments can be made. And I like that so that you're not as much exposed to not having had the time to adapt. Baltimore made some good improvements. Buffalo made a huge investment on their defensive front, And so I think having that bye week after allows them to do more adjustment as they plan for the postseason, especially because I expect the Buffalo Bills defense to perform differently and look very different and be a different type of obstacle. So I love the prep myself and then putting the Buffalo game before the bye.
To each his own. I get it. I mean, I wish that it was the Buffalo Bills that they were playing after the bye instead of who they're playing. So
fair enough.
I think
the other part
really
that I really love is that I wanted to kind of. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the part I love. So they played the Denver Broncos right after the bye week. That's okay, I guess. But the part that I really love is they play the Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving, which I don't love. But I love that they have an extra 3 days to prepare for the Houston Texans the next week,
who may be making a push as well, right? I can see them leading their division. I like the fact I wanted all the AFC West games to finish them, to put them all in a row. That's what I had hoped for. I almost got that wish towards the end of the season where 15 is the Chargers. The Titans sneak in there. The Titans are not going to be in a position, I don't think, with a rookie quarterback to even come close to pushing the Chiefs. We'll see what happens, but that's my read. And then you finish Denver and Vegas back to back. So 3 of the last 4 are the AFC West. And I like having that because, yes, the games are usually close, but you know what you have in them, especially knowing that you're coming up against Pete Carroll and his offense. And despite any changes, you know what Pete Carroll's offense is. You're going up against Jim Harbaugh. And yes, he has a better run possibility, but you know what it's going to look like. I feel like this sets the Chiefs up to finish strong against teams that they already know.
So I would also add to that you know them, but you're going to get to know them even better because you will have already played all of them once early in the season, and you will have game tape on all of them by the time you get to the end of the season, which you would have on other teams. But playing against them, knowing what they're trying to do early in the season, and then watching how they progress, you're going to have a better idea of where they're going to be, what they're going to be able to do to you the second time you play them. So I do like that they're finishing that stretch. I really don't like the Raiders being the final game, but I think it's a game that it's always going to be a divisional game, and there's not a great choice because I didn't ever think it was going to be the Chargers, considering they're the first game of the season.
Right.
Could have been the Broncos, and I think I would have liked that a little bit better, but I think that's also probably a tougher game. But who knows whether or not Kansas City is even going to need that game or not, or how that's going to play out.
Yeah, that's fair. The other thing that I really like about this schedule is there are zero back-to-back away games. And I think that's incredible. I don't expect that most times. There's a 3-game stretch in October that is all at home. Most of that month will be at home. And that, I think, sets them up, especially what I consider a more difficult first half of this schedule. I think that really helps them out.
Yeah, and we're going to have to talk about that more difficult first half because there's some stuff we haven't talked about when it comes to what is going to be a problem for this team. And, you look at this and you look at the pluses. I agree with you. I think that you have an easier second half of the season as it sits right now. You have a little bit of prep from, in one of, I think, your biggest games in the second half of the season. Like I said, you have 10 days to prepare for the Texans. I think that's a huge thing for this team to get ready to be able to do that because I think the Texans are going to be pushing for a playoff spot.
Yeah. And
you are still in a position where you're prime front and center of the entire NFL.
Oh, yeah. I got to ask you, though, and it'll lead into what we discuss next, but overall, with all these, like, not just primetime games, but like these enormous games on major holidays, do you see that as a plus or minus right now?
I don't think it's a plus. Let me put it that way.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't know. It depends. I mean, are the players going to be happy about playing on both Thanksgiving and Christmas?
No. But like that old movie with Wesley Snipes, I hope they play better pissed off. I'm good with that.
Well, I mean, that's kind of my point. I mean, at least you have the Christmas game at home, so you're not away on both games.
True.
but you're playing in Dallas, so you're not going to be home for Thanksgiving. It's tough. I don't think the players are going to be happy about it, and I think that's really what a lot of this comes down to.
Yeah, it's at that point in the season, I think it very much rides on what you've gotten done to that point in the season. If they are ahead of schedule, and folks, we will give you our season predictions coming up later in the off season as we get towards camp. We're gonna obviously after OTAs give you our predictions for the 53. Everything will be coming prediction wise there, but they're way ahead of our predictions last year. So I think that actually makes those particular games, the holiday games in particular, a little bit easier to deal with if you're ahead of what you had projected for yourself. I can't think that they're going to be overly arrogant about what their record might be at that point. So it feels to me like that sets them up to be in a positive frame of mind.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a great point. I think that positive is they have to be excited to be prime time so much. So I mean, it's 6 of this, half dozen of the other. I mean, you're not going to get everything you want, but you are the face of the NFL, and the NFL is giving you that by the schedule they've given you.
Yeah.
And you look at the Dallas game, they're playing the Colts beforehand. That shouldn't be a game. I'm not saying that it's a guaranteed win, but it shouldn't be a game that is going to be a bloodbath when it comes to physicality and wiping you out. So because that matters when you're talking about them getting ready to play on a Thursday night against Dallas 4 days later.
I was just going to say that turnaround is one of the things that is a problem. And there are a couple of obstacles. We're going to get to those and tell you exactly what you got to watch for coming up next. 4 days, you say? That was a perfect segue, by the way. Well done. That's one of the major obstacles in this is that transition from Indy to Dallas in 4 days' time because of the holiday. And I think
it's even worse because you got to travel.
This is the one. Yeah, this is the one that bothers me the most, to tell you the truth, because exactly you have to put in a day of travel there. And yes, it's 3-hour flight to Dallas, whatever. But it's the prep for that. It's getting into the hotel. It's having to have the meetings there rather than at your home, right? I think that eats an entire day away overall. And so you really talk about prepping from the Indianapolis Colts to the Dallas Cowboys in 3 days.
Yep.
Now that also
the nice thing about
bye week, right?
Right. But I also will say the nice thing about that is when you start looking at their schedule, I know we're talking negatives now and obstacles, but the nice thing about that specifically is that Dallas is an NFC team. It doesn't hurt them near as much with a loss if they lose to Dallas in that case.
Yeah. I honestly don't see that. I don't see Dallas being that strong of a team.
I don't
either.
The
only thing that trips them up is that schedule, in my opinion. And you know that they're going to prep for it on the bye week as well. I know everyone's like, everybody go be on vacation and all that. You're coming back to the Broncos. And I do believe the Broncos are going to push. You guys will hear this on the AFC preview show. The Broncos are going to push to be the number 2 team. They may overtake the Chargers in this division. I think that's a definite possibility. So that is a bigger game this year than it was last year. And I do think they'll have to prep for it, but Dallas will be on their mind as well. But the major obstacles, right? That travel in particular is the flip side of the coin that we were talking about, being on all these national holidays. That is also a difficult one for the rookie class in particular, or the guys new to the roster. Moore has probably played in a lot of primetime games, but being on major television for the world to see overall, sometimes that adds a layer of pressure. For the class of Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis, ain't no big deal to them, right? Like they jumped in the fire and they've been in the fire the entire time. Some people won't necessarily deal with that so easily. And I do think that is part of the obstacle. But that set aside, if you had to pick, the first half of this season is definitely like 100 times more difficult, in my opinion. Do you agree?
So to go with your point, their first 6 games are either primetime or more than likely America's Game of the Week. I mean, they play the Chargers, they play the Eagles, which is going to be the America's Game of the Week. Then they're on Sunday Night Football against the Giants. Then they have the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday. at 3:30. That's going to be the primetime game. That's going to be the game of the week. Jacksonville's a Monday night game, and then one of the hardest games on the schedule we haven't said anything about, the Detroit Lions on Sunday Night Football.
Well, and I'll tell you this: I don't think you can ignore the game before that. Week 5 against the Jacksonville Jaguars, they've made significant improvements, and they have the best guy in this draft lining up to them, probably on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, no, I agree. You can't ignore the game, but I don't put the Jaguars in the same class as I put the Lions. I think the Lions could be somebody that could challenge for the Super Bowl on the NFC side. I don't know that I would say that I think Jacksonville can do that. We'll see. I think that they could take a big step forward. But the other thing with Jacksonville is they're in a situation where Trevor Lawrence has to prove it this year. They've given him a ton of stuff, so all the pressure's on him this year.
Yeah, and maybe that pressure scenario flips the whole script there. I just look at if there's a darling team that could come out of nowhere because they made such a drastic offseason change, it might be the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yep, could be.
I think, just like we said, you end the second half with the Raiders, who I think will again be bottom dwellers in the AFC West. You get week 7 against them, which is kind of, along with maybe Jacksonville, the one breath of air in the front half of the season before you have to hit the Commanders and then the Buffalo Bills, again on a bit of a shortened timeline there as well, right?
Yeah, and that's the other problem is you have Jacksonville on Monday night and then you have Detroit on Sunday night. So you're losing a day there. Then you lose another day with the Commanders playing, and then you lose a day to the Bills that next week. And at least in that game's in Buffalo. So, you're basically almost losing 2 games, although you are at home Monday night. So that kind of helps a little bit.
Yeah. I think once you get to the bye, it's going to be a big breath of fresh air. The other obstacle that I see is really that gap. It's less than 28 days to play. Oh, no, it's exactly 28 days to play 5 games between Dallas and Christmas Day. That's a pretty good run. And against teams that should be in a position to give you a run for your money. I don't think the Dallas game will be easy. I expect them to win it, though. I don't think the Houston game will be easy, but I expect them to win that. That might be the tougher of the two, right? And then you have the showdowns with the West. The only breath you get in that entire gap is Tennessee with a rookie quarterback and old friend Mike Borgonzi coming in. We'll see if L'Jarius Sneed can even play in that game. L'Jarius couldn't put half a season together last year, let alone 16 games to get to this point. So we might not even see him.
Yeah, that's possible. And the big question is where the Chargers are going to be at that point and where the Broncos are going to be at that point. Did the Chargers take another step forward on their offense this year? And we won't know that until the season starts going. I mean, we can speculate, but we won't know what their team actually looks like until we're, week 10 or so in the season. And the Broncos, did Bo Nix take a step forward or is he taking a step back? I mean, that's really what's going to play into the second half of the schedule for the Chiefs. And I agree with you. 25 games in 28 days is a lot. And I mean, the only nice thing, again, about the end of that is that you're going to have 10 days to rest after that Christmas game. But you have 2 Thursday night games or 2 Thursday games in a month. And most teams aren't going to play more than 1 Thursday night game the entire season.
And I, for one, I'm all for Chiefs not playing on Thursdays, period. I'd love to have one of those years. Can we get back to that, please?
Every team plays on a Thursday, though.
I know, but I'm ready for it to be done.
No.
Roger,
it would be nice, but I would go back to I'd be okay with having a Thursday night game like opening night. That doesn't bother me.
Okay.
But you have to win the Super Bowl to do that. So,
right. It does happen.
Yep.
Well, we'd like to know what you're looking for the pluses and minuses on this roster. This is what we see right now. Things will change. There are teams that will step up. There will some teams that take a step back. So maybe what it looks like now is not what it looks like come week 7. But we're going to let you know as we go along. And we will have a full breakdown of each week, as we always do, as we have for the last 9 years. So thank you for joining us and being part of the journey. Stay with us. Make sure you like, sub, and hit the bell here on YouTube and on the audio platforms. And we're going to have more for you as we get closer and closer, not only OTAs, but getting to camp and getting to week 1. That's the goal. Have a great one. Enjoy your time. We'll be back with you tomorrow, so don't miss that. Get subscribed and check out the text line at 816-357-8781. And we'll talk to you tomorrow.